Good afternoon, everyone. David Gross with Condé Systems, back with you to share a little bit of, I guess, our recipe for sublimation success. Jimmy, have you been cooking in the sublimation kitchen?
Well, I have been cooking for quite a bit lately and whipping up all kinds of things.
Well, we're glad everyone's gathered. We've got a great crowd here, and today we're going to talk about more sales and marketing activities. I guess there's a thirst, Jimmy, that sublimation really hits the spot. I call it the Google mentality that we live in today. It's, I want it now, I want it my way.
Right.
And today we're going to talk about Fanwear, which I guess is sort of a very broad market. Today you'll be in listen-only mode. We will accept your questions, so type them in. And during the event, Jimmy will see these and he'll answer them if appropriate. Otherwise, we'll save them to the end. If we have a question that is requires a lot of detailed conversation, we'll do that offline. And I want to give away a little bit of Condé credit, Jimmy.
Okay.
And then for folks that are part of this broadcast, whether they're real time or after it as it goes on Condé TV, I'll have a special offer to go with it. Jimmy, I think at this point you usually provide some interesting polling questions.
I do, and I have three questions. Anybody that's joined us recently before knows that I typically start off with these three. It gets us a profile of who's out there tuning in. So we're going to start with the first one, and this is totally voluntary on your part. But yeah, we're asking a question: do you currently offer sublimation in-house or not? And it's important to know that whether you're doing it or not, because we always want to make sure that we're trying to address the spectrum of who's out there. And so this information becomes very useful for us. Okay, it looks like the majority have probably answered. It's about 80% of you have voted. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one out, and then you'll be able to see the actual numbers that we were able to collect from you. So we'll close that one, and then I'll share it with you. And you can see 82% of you are doing sublimation in-house, and it looks like 18% of the respondents said no. So that's good information to know. All right, let's go on to our next one. So of those of you who are doing it in-house, which sublimation system do you use? Now, David, I added something extra on here based on last time because you said something about the sublimation markers. So the problem is I didn't set it up where they could choose multiple answers, so they're probably choosing their favorite printer and then figuring out they can't choose out of two. So next time, David, I'll have that one right. Will it be like you can choose more than one answer?
Cool.
Okay. About 75% of you have contributed to the polling, and I'll give it here just a couple more seconds and then close it out and show you the results. So we'll go ahead and close now. Thanks again, everyone, for participating. Here are the responses. About 80% of you are with an SG400 or SG800, 2% with the VJ, 12% with the Epson, 7% other, and sublimation markers was 0%, but I'm thinking people were looking at what their primary printer was.
If you don't know about markers, please go check it out. I mean, it's just wickedly cool to be able to do sublimation with the markers for kids fundraising.
Yep. Okay, and now we'll hide that one. We'll go into our final. And our final, let's see, we have to hide that. So here we go with our final. And are you currently active in the Fanwear marketplace? And so I actually gave you kind of three answers. Yes, really active. No, not at all. And then a little bit. Okay, so you've toyed with it, but maybe you're kind of new to it. So just check whichever one is most appropriate to your situation. And looking good here. Got about 88, 90% participation on this. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one out and share with you the answers. So we can see that 14% of you are pretty active with Fanwear, whereas 35% said, nope, not at all, and 51% a little bit. Okay, so good. That's good. That's a really good mix to have. Okay, I'm going to hide that and turn those off and out of the way, and we'll take it from there. So let's talk about the market potential. First of all, when I use the term fanwear, I mean, fanwear is like spirit wear, right? Spirit apparel kind of, but it's, to me, maybe it's a little broader base, but if you're used to the term spirit wear, spirit products, okay, that's kind of where we're going with fanwear. If we look in 2015, I apologize, that's a couple of years old, but sometimes your stats are just that way. They're just not, it takes them a while to gather the information. But U.S. consumers spent $14.1 billion on logoed sports apparel. That's a lot of money, okay? Now, clients include, when we're talking about this market, pro sports, colleges, high schools, local leagues, events, tournaments, and competitions. And as we go through, I mean, most of you are not going to be involved in pro sports probably ever, because the licensing on pros can be so expensive with so many upfront, fees and whatever. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's tough. I would say that the rest of them definitely have possibilities for you, and that's really more of what we're going to be focusing on. Cool thing for us in the market is that sublimated apparel, when it's 100% polyester, will not fade, crack, or peel. Poly performance products, which typically are 100% or very close to it with polyester, have moisture wicking capabilities, which go hand in hand with most fan situations, because so many times when we go to sports, it can be hot, just the location, but it's also a very popular type of material for people associated with sports to wear. Poly performance, by the way, is one of the fastest growing sports fabrics out there. And at the bottom of the list there, sublimation can deliver graphics and photos in addition to text. So it works really well together, sublimation and the market potential.
Yeah, and I would say that one of the best kept secrets of sublimation on apparel is you can sublimate to light colors, and they look fabulous.
Yes, absolutely.
And then with the advent of the Caesar Easy Subli Vinyl, the Forever Flex Off, you can now sublimate using these vinyl products and put them directly on cotton, black shirts and all. So sublimation continues to grow up.
It definitely does. And you were mentioning the vinyl products, and that's a really neat aspect, because a lot of people are used to vinyl already on fanwear products, but now instead of being a solid color or trying to have to layer to get a couple of different colors, we can directly sublimate it. We could, put any type of graphic we want onto that vinyl, including, the mascot itself, team colors, etc., and definitely take it to a higher level. When we talk about just direct sublimation, stunning visuals and eye-catching graphics, so that goes a long way to really helping, really producing the right image out there, because so many times with sublimation, it's not as much what it is as what we put on it. So when we really do good-looking, images, it really jumps out and it raises the perceived value of the product. And the neat thing about sublimation is it's a custom solution without a custom cost, which means we can do some really nice, creative, unique things that don't cost us more money, but the perception is the value is higher, therefore you can earn a higher margin.
Yeah, you can individualize each one.
Yes. Okay, so I said football is fanwear, but this isn't about football. It's about fanwear across the board there. Fanwear, it comes in many forms, and that's one of the neat things is all the things we can do with sublimation. When you compare it to the other things, such as screen printing and embroidery and some of those, yeah, you can do some neat things there, but the range of what we can do is pretty incredible with sublimation. And I always, encourage you, look at what you can do that the others maybe cannot do. It's not about everybody trying to put the same logo on a shirt. It's about you making wrong word, knockout products. Yeah, that was a bad one, wasn't it? Oh, knockout products, for the fanwear marketplace. And, one of the things I learned a long time ago is when I'm trying to figure out what maybe a certain market is buying, is a lot of times I just watch what the younger people are wearing. And some of it will translate and become something I can do. Some of it may not. But, when you're looking at fanwear, and I'm using football as an example, but the reality is we're thinking way past that. What is popular with pro sports? Okay. And what is the product focus on? The product you're going to make. Is it for a team? You're going to do team apparel? You're doing it for an event, or you're doing it for an individual who maybe is, a fan of the team? Okay. Or maybe you're just an individual player. What kind of message is being delivered? What do you want to pull out of that graphic, that presentation? Can a photo be used? Because that can certainly add a lot of value. And can the graphic be templated and reused? And I call your attention to the socks in the very middle, because when socks first came out, I didn't see the potential until I walked into a store that sold fanwear products and started seeing professional athletes sublimated their image, dunking a basketball, sublimated on socks, and you can see that on the left sock, and then the right sock's the player's name and number. And, in the retail world, those things are drawing top dollar. Can we translate that into what we do? And if we can, we just created a custom product we can get a pretty high margin on.
Now, I think we can, and even more. I mean, socks now, with the advent of the built-in jig, has become so easy to do.
Yes.
So these products are in demand by, of course, fans, by the athletes, by the support staff. Just you got everybody in the loop.
Yes, most definitely. Just a couple of things to throw out there. I mean, this is all built around one team, Brighton. Okay. And I'm going to show you a few things here that I did with Creative Studio, and then I'm going to show you some really cool products that some of you have sent in to Condé. So you'll see some real world things that perhaps you did or your peers have done. But we start thinking through, and we got the beanies and the shirts and the socks and, flip-flops. I mean, anything you can put that logo or mascot on becomes fanwear. But it goes beyond that. That's one thing I don't like about the word fanwear, because if we said W-E-A-R, it sounds like it's only apparel, and the reality is it goes past that. And we can talk about drink wear, which is spelled W-A-R-E. But you can see the drink huggers, very popular, water bottles, very popular. And again,
I mean,
we're just
the list is so
mascots.
long, from license plate frames, trailer hitch covers.
Oh, yeah.
You've got
Car
the
flags.
car
Love the
flags.
car flags.
You've got garden flags with team information on there. I've even seen people making a little handheld sign that they hold in their hand.
Right.
Kind of stuff. I thought of a product of, have the fans, the fans with a athlete or person's face on it,
Oh, that's a cool idea, David. That's a real cool idea. Seat cushions. I always say, especially in a high school sporting event, because in the first quarter, a seat cushion might only be worth a couple of bucks on the low end of the scale. But if you're in a football game, by the second quarter, the perceived value has gone up because of you sitting on the bleachers. And by halftime, these are top dollar products, So your seat cushion can go a long way to making a difference there.
And because it was done with sublimation, you're not going to have any problems with water causing the ink to run or things like that. It's diffused into the polyester facing.
Yep. We have our ornaments. So, we talk about Christmas gifts. Okay. So we're kind of combining Christmas gifts and fanwear. Why not? We've seen plenty of Christmas trees that have, sports themed decorations on there. And then, of course, one of my favorites is the floor mat. I just love floor mats. Just love doing floor mats. Always been able to get top dollar. You got some great floor mats, David. I've taken your floor. I got one right now that's one that I bought from you.
Is that the one on your boat?
The one on the boat. It's about 5 years
Okay.
old. It's been in direct sunlight. It's been bleached. It's been washed, and it is showing. It's showing its age now. It's 5 years old, but you know what? Still use it, and I've been impressed how well it lasted. And then of course that means I sold them to the other boaters around me too for top dollar. So there's something to say about that as well.
Awesome.
Yep. All right then. So let's continue on and look at some of the things that your customers have sent in, showing off what they've done. Because I mentioned football. Okay, I like football, but there's so many other sports out there. And one of the things I always suggest in the world of sports is look for the sports that everybody else kind of avoided or forgot about. I call them the forgotten sports, and I don't mean disrespect to the sport, but I mean the reality is there's a lot of people, they'll go to a high school, for example, and they try to sell football, basketball, and baseball teams, but they forget about the golf and the tennis and the swimming and all those. So there's plenty of opportunities with all the different sports. Here we see this is kind of interesting because David, they took a towel and put a hole in it for like a putting green.
Well, yeah, it looks like a photograph that's on one of the towels. It's grommeted with a beautiful photograph, and then
I see. Yeah.
Some text for the event. There's a lot of tournaments, and towels are always popular. Occasionally, you'll bag tags, signs at holes, things like that, or just there's a lot of products, and then you can obviously head to the pro shop. You could participate in events there. I think you have a lot of choices. We talk about the virtual inventory model where
right.
You only need to decorate whatever you think you're going to sell, and if it sells, well, you can decorate more.
That's right. Dave, when I first looked at it, I mean, I think that the imaging is good enough on this towel that to me, when I first looked at it, it looked like a real golf ball and a real hole, like someone had cut a hole in the towel. And then I realized as you were talking that's just the image someone put on there. So that's one of those advantages, again, of being able to put photographs onto a product. It's that's really cool how that adds to it. Okay, here we go. We got some flip-flops, formal wear where I live here in North Carolina on the coast. But that works. And here we have...
I guess that's an arm sleeve.
That's what I'm thinking. It's the arm sleeve.
That's beautiful design. I'm sure it looks good on the person.
Yeah, I mean, and you got all that color there, so if you're in the stands and just waving your arms around, you're really putting the color out there.
Yeah, I was on a website for my peer, if you will, in Germany, and they have an arm sleeve that they call a captain's sleeve. So it's got to be something for soccer.
Yep.
But it had a place that, obviously, a strap that would go underneath your thumb. So I have to ask him what in the world that is.
Yeah, interesting. So here we have the koozie product. Nice fanwear product.
Yeah, we'd say that's Huggers.
Yep.
And everybody out there, please call them Huggers. Do you know why, Jimmy?
Because koozie is a brand name.
It is. So, for instance, we just launched our new Huggers for the Solo Cups. And who would have thought that people wanted a Solo Cup Hugger, but they're selling very well. So Huggers, whether you're going to a sports event, fundraiser, or a wedding, those millennials love their Huggers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and they come in a lot of different shapes and sizes. When I've walked down your hallway there in your headquarters building and just looked at all the different Huggers that Condé has, it's pretty interesting. So
Huggers and coasters.
Yes. And here we have a good old onesie. That's important.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, you got to start them young, right?
Absolutely, really good looking.
Yep,
And you know, those are small enough where you can really do a great job on a 16 by 20
I know.
press with a SG800. 13 by 21 can do an excellent job.
Yep. Here we have the shirt, so we're seeing kind of the front and the back.
Cool. That's
And
a beautiful bag tag.
yes, that's a great product too in the sports world. You know, because we can put it on the athlete's equipment bag. We can put it on, mom's pocketbook. We can put it, on just about anything really, and carry that fan theme along.
Yeah, I think it's it's for a typical backpack kind of person. It's just a fashion decorating
Yep.
accessory.
Here,
Ah, okay.
now correct me if I'm wrong, but this looks like the bag tags combined with ribbons, maybe
I
with,
think that that's probably a pin that
okay,
you would stick on your shirt or something. It's got some ribbons in it, would be my guess. Maybe just a fan pin,
right,
something like that. But super cool.
it is.
I
And
guess.
this is a close-up, so it appears to be on apparel, which is what I'm assuming. Um,
Gotcha.
yep,
You know, those kind of designs, you see them all the time with the digital art solutions libraries. They've got so many team sport
right.
vector designs.
And here we
Okay.
have, that's nice because we were talking about how great vinyl is, but on the other hand, vinyl, especially if you're in a sport where you're kind of abusing your jersey, it's going to over time get damaged a little bit as opposed to if we can do direct sublimation, we actually have it embedded in the surface. But it's still good to be able to do both, because you have options depending on what the sport is on how to decorate it.
And around here, you get red clay on stuff like that. You've got to use bleach, and
Right.
so the shirt's going to hold up much better to bleach than I assume if you've got vinyl on it. Although I've been learning the vinyl, and it's really cool. But I would say if it's pure sublimation, it's just about going to be bulletproof.
Yep.
Hmm. Get
And
that
you mentioned
safety
earlier
on.
license
Yeah.
plate. So there's our license plate. Now, here's what I like, dude. Look at the background that they used. Okay. I like when I don't really, there may be a situation where a white background on a license plate's fine. But what I really like is um, having a little bit of a textured background. I think it adds a lot to the perceived value of the product.
I would say that in the license plate world, the certainly my current favorite is the silver chrome looking plates. Um, really nice. Sprite's got a couple of designs, for backgrounds that quite attractive.
Yep. Here, this
Long
looks
sleeve.
like some more of the sleeves, compression sleeves.
Yeah, I'll tell you one product, Jimmy, that you can expect to see more and more of, and that's putting Spirit Wear fan designs on the Apple Watch bands.
Yes.
Uh, really cool looking. I mean, normally you could never imagine having, say, a high school themed sport watch band for you, but now it's trivial to do. Um, and those watch bands, as we found out, they fit a lot of different watches. Guy here at the office has one on one of the Fitbit, and I
Yes.
go, well, I had no idea they would go on there. They go on the Samsung, so it's more than just an Apple kind of thing. But again, the ladies love those watch bands, and why not, put something design on there that's sort of fashionable, but has that spirit theme.
Yes. All right.
Maybe another sleeve, I guess,
Yep.
or
Or
could be a
sock.
scarf,
It's,
could be a sock. Yeah.
yep.
Bowling stuff. What a
Yep.
great opportunity there. We've talked about bowling a little bit in the past, but there's a lot of bowlers out there.
Yes, there are. And so that's another one of those sports that sometimes, yeah, I say get overlooked because everyone's kind of running around looking at the big three per se and forget about all the other great opportunities out there.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there. In bowling, of course, you need a towel, that's for sure.
Yep. So here is the final one, and it's the football bag tag, and it
Okay.
apparently is two-sided, so that's what's on each side.
Huh. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, there's just, you could practically take any product from a drinkware, from beautiful drinkware to what would be, think of something new, coasters, you name it, turn them into great products that, could be sold as a fundraiser or in the school spirit store.
Yep. So I want to change gears for just a minute. Now, if you joined us not too long ago, we talked about copyrights and trademarks, but we're just going to briefly mention it because a lot of times when we go into fanwear, we do cross some boundaries of what's called intellectual property, or IP for short, and that's when we talk about trademarks, copyrights, and licensing. And it really depends on the level you're working at as to how this applies. I'm going to try and keep this kind of simple so we can move on through it. But when we talk about trademarks and copyrights, it's again what we call intellectual property. Now, keep in mind when I say most, that doesn't mean all. All right. So this is more trending to, I mean, certainly the pros, but this is more trending to the college level probably than anywhere else. But it may also trend into some of the private, local sports leagues or whatnot. So in general, things that you trademark are like team and event names. Okay. In general, things you copyright are like mascots and graphics. All right. Typical exception, but I can't promise it. Okay, so there's no 100% guarantee, but I found that in many cases, public institutions have not done trademarking and copywriting. Now, because I said that, you're going to find somebody like immediately that did, okay? And that's not to say they couldn't, but it seems like the ones I've dealt with typically have not, okay? Now, licensing is where someone puts in place a trademark or a copyright, and then they will allow someone like a sublimator to print products with that piece of intellectual property and sell for a profit. But as part of the licensing requirement, there's stipulations of how you can and cannot use it, and you would also have to pay royalties back to the owner of the IP, but that's perfectly legitimate. And that's what you see typically with college sports, is you get a license to reproduce, and once you're approved, you pay typically an upfront fee, and then you pay a royalty on everything that you sell. And they also put heavy restrictions on what you can and can't do with the logo. You never really own it. You have a license to reproduce it.
I'll say this, we've talked about this before, that many colleges do have a crafter's license, and you can Google them, you can call them, and a crafter's license for minimal amount of work and really a minimal amount of money, it gives you the ability to use their artwork for what they would refer to as handmade products, which of course sublimation qualifies. So here in Alabama, the University of Alabama actually does have a crafter's license program. The form is very simple. Money is reasonable, and so you can jump right in and have legitimate licensed product. Auburn, which is where I went, does not. So you can check and take advantage of that. There's a lot of ways that there you can do it correctly, like getting into like fraternity sorority licensing. those people do patrol pretty well. So you really need to be straightforward and get that license. It's not that painful.
Absolutely. So there was a question for that just came in. There's several questions. I just haven't gotten to them yet, but this one popped in. I thought it was a good time to kind of address it. How do we find out if our local sports teams are trademarked? Well, first of all, you might have to ask the team. If you're talking about a college or university, a lot of them, but not all of them, but a lot of them use an agency called CLC, which is the Collegiate Licensing Company, and to manage their licensing for them. And you can actually go to the websites for CLC. It used to be clc.com. I'm not positive it still is. But if you go there, they give you a list of everyone they have the license for. In my case, I do a local university where I actually called the local university's Dean of Business Affairs and said, hey, I want to reproduce your logo. And he said, oh, okay, well, we'll put you into a licensing, plan. And I had to get approved and whatever, but that's what I do. I pay them an annual fee, but I only actually have to pay them royalties. It's not a big university compared, to some of the big names like Auburn, But that's kind of how you start looking into it, and you may just have to approach them and see what they have going on.
And I think it's worth introducing yourself and showing them what they can do because, for instance, you may not be able to get a license in the sports area, but hey, you might be able to get business for, say, some awards and recognition products to be used within the program. You might be able to show them a beautiful sublimated name badge, and it's an upgrade maybe from what they're already getting. So certainly by communicating with people, by getting out there and making those sales calls, I guarantee you're absolutely going to plant seeds and get business.
Yeah, and one other thing to mention too is you may have someone approach you who does have a license and they're coming to you to produce something because they can't do it themselves. And that is legitimate. They can do that. They can contract the work out, but you do want to make sure that they actually do have a license. So I would ask for some type of verification, because if you're doing it for a licensee, typically it's acceptable, but if they're not licensed but they said they were, you could be in some hot water. So if somebody does come to you with that type of situation, just ask for proof that they are a licensee. Okay, so if you talk about major leagues, I'm just going to talk about sort of the things. If you talk about major leagues, they have very intense licensing programs. I know a couple of people, but they're huge companies that do things like for the NFL. They typically have very expensive application fees, upfront royalties on projected sales, and that's a tough one. But there are possible opportunities as a subcontractor. Interestingly enough, though, I have several friends in the industry who have minor league sports licensing, and they found it was totally, totally different from major league sports, even though a lot of the minor league teams, are associated with major league teams. And of course, when we say it that way, it sounds like it's strictly baseball, but no, there's other sports that have so-called minor leagues, like soccer, for example. So if you're looking at a minor league sports team, I would approach the team directly and talk to them about what license requirements might be. I know someone who did that, and she got a license with them, and for a baseball minor league team in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Because you never know, they might be in a crisis mode because their suppliers let them down.
Right.
They've got an event coming up the next day. They need the product then. And that's where sublimation really shines, because you can do things on demand, in the next hour or so.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
When these companies or sports teams, they have these out-of-town relationships, that's where you can come in and maybe get a small piece of the business, which
Right.
allows you to grow from there.
Yeah, and I've already mentioned this here, but again with the universities, look at and CLC.com. I just looked it up. They're actually been bought by a bigger company called IMG. But if you went to CLC.com, you would actually find the place to start. Um, it it can be an intense application process, especially with the more well-known teams, and there are a lot of reasons why that they do tend to limit the number of people with licenses. You got to have a really compelling reason why you should have one before they'll give
It's
you
a
one.
unique product or
Yes.
some sort of unique application.
Yep.
But hey, you never know.
That's right. And the same thing as I mentioned before, the smaller colleges and universities, I went to the Dean of Business Affairs and found all I needed to, applied, got approved, and went on from there. Now, what about public schools? Again, I can't promise this is the situation, but I find that most, or at least many, public schools do not have a licensing or program. They don't have proper IP documentation. And this is something that's actually got our local schools into trouble, is many of them adopted mascots created by others, which could be in violation of IP laws. And I even went to the school attorney to talk to them about licensing, and they couldn't tell me anything. I mean, nothing. So I do know that a couple of our high schools had borrowed mascots from some of the universities, and the universities came and cracked down on them. That seems like it's like, wow, why'd you do that to this poor little high school team? It isn't necessarily what the college wanted to do, but the copyright law states that you have to go after anybody you find infringing. So if they find you infringing, regardless of the fact that you're a public school, they came in and told them they couldn't use it, and the schools had to redesign some new things. So a lot of them don't have any kind of program whatsoever. On the other hand, some of the private schools may. Okay, so you just do your best there. Like I said, talking to the schools themselves, sometimes they don't even know what a licensing program is. So, but if they have one, they'll know what it is. That's the difference. Then we have lots of leagues. You have private leagues and public leagues, and usually the public ones, the city recreational leagues, city, county, state. Again, typically there's no licensing there at all. Some of the private leagues, it might be a different story. We do have some private soccer leagues in town, for example, and they tend to be very protective of their names and trademarks and all those kind of things. So it's something to be aware of.
Always be respective, and you'll find out the situation, but you're likely to get credibility by asking instead of
Right.
doing. But understand, all these organizations, even simpler ones, are still complex. They'll always have some recognition programs. They'll always have
Right.
something for fans, for traveling squads, for events, pre and post season. Just an immense amount of activities, and I would say quite a few of them will have some sort of fundraising activities.
Yes, and that's always such a great approach. I know that's one of your favorite angles, and mine too, is going in on that because of the fact you're going to help them make money, and while you're making money, so everybody kind of makes out for it. The final category is competitions, events, and tournaments, and it follows the same kind of line right there. If it's a public municipal, it probably doesn't have an IP or licensing program. If it's private, it probably does. And keep in mind that a lot of them, nonprofits are putting them on, and the nonprofits themselves have, total control typically because they've registered their IP with their copyrights and trademarks and everything. But that doesn't mean you can't do business with them. They're just kind of making sure that if you went out and started selling things to people with their name on it, that they were getting their percentage of it. Because after all, a nonprofit's usually in the business of trying to raise money. So those are things that you think about too when you're approaching these groups. Okay, I mean, just keep in mind that it's benefiting them, and you want to make sure that they're always getting the benefit they're supposed to get. So when we talk about the sales strategy, I think it's very important to be proactive, which we've already started talking about. you go to people with ideas and engage them and show them benefit. I think that's really the most important part of all. I don't think there's such a long, drawn-out sales pitch. It's just focused on something that's useful and beneficial to them. And typically, I think about the whole market, not just an individual, because a lot of times what I want to do is, if I got an idea, to present, I want to go present it to everybody in that marketplace so I can, broaden my opportunities for making money. A basic sales and marketing approach looks like this. Kind of like analyze the market or the client you want to approach. I mean, don't just go knock on the door, analyze them. Kind of think through all the different things that they're about and what they stand for. Create some product ideas, produce a sample set, and develop a sales pitch. And, that way, a lot of times you're making a cold call sell, but you want to knock on the door and be ready. You don't want to be there and stutter and not know what to say.
Make a sample. One of the things to keep in mind when you're making your call is not to confuse them that they're selling promotional products. That's not what you're there. They're going to have already been through the promotional products, and maybe they need promotional products, but what you're there is providing them with an on-demand, personalized, custom product as they need it. And that value is unlimited.
Absolutely.
So typically a really good way is make something that has their name on it, because as Jimmy and I have preached over and over again, nobody ever throws away a personalized product.
True. Very true. So just sort of a breakdown, because I say, well, what does it mean analyze the market and a client? Everything David was just saying is so important, is to really understand who that customer is. And there's 3 routes to pursue, I mean, depending on who you're approaching, okay? And you got to understand who you're approaching. I mean, it may be that you're doing fulfillment, where you're filling orders for licensees or retailers. In the case of the school is the retailer who is actually selling it. And there are other times where you're selling your own products to someone who resells it, okay? So it may be one where it's like you're doing their products per se. It's something they needed you to do. Oh, we got a bunch of mugs. We need you to sublimate them. We're going to resell them. And then there's other where you came to them with an idea. And then sometimes, and I'm going to talk more about this in just a few minutes, sometimes you're selling directly to the end user instead of selling to someone to resell. So it's important to look at that marketplace to see how the buying and selling is achieved. As well, is licensing required? What products are really popular in the retail world that apply to this client or this market? Designs, can you create your own, or do you have strict guidelines? And how big is the following? One of the things we've done with schools before is we were producing products that they would sell the school, and usually for an organization like the athletic boosters or the band boosters. And me personally, did almost everything with band boosters, all right? But at one point we challenged, said, well, why don't you have the kids create the artwork that they would think would sell well, And they did. They had sort of like their own little internal competition. And the kids created the artwork, and then we produced it onto the products that were sold at the football games. And it sold like hotcakes because everybody knew it came internally, instead of just the mascot.
That's a great story. That is a great story.
Yeah.
We do something similar here every year with robotics, where we have the kids come in, they design their own shirt, and it's a full bleed shirt,
right.
And we print it and press it. And you can look at it and this is not, quote, quote, done by a graphics artist. This is done by the kids. And so it looks, to me, so much better for the event.
Yeah. Yep. And so, yeah, you're really drawing them into it, and it really makes a difference. I'm all about creating the product ideas, because I'm always wanting to think of something normal and, different than just the everyday. One product, and it wasn't sublimatable, but just as an example, when I'm on the other side of the fence, because I was Band Booster president for 3 years, I remember somebody came to me and showed me thunder sticks. I'm like, what the heck are thunder sticks? And all they were just like these long cylindrical, like tubes that were plastic that you blow up and you get them good and stiff and you slap them together. When you got a lot of people in the stand slapping together, it actually makes a lot of noise. In this case, they were screen printed, but I mean, it's like I never knew what a thunder stick was, but it was interesting because it was different. That's my whole point. So, we start thinking about that. How are they going to use this? Is it something to make a commotion during a game? I like what you were talking about, the fans with somebody's picture, a number on it or something. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that's I just put it on my list. I saw some the other night, and I said, we could do this with sublimation, but of course you don't have to do it with sublimation. It's just heavy cardboard that's in the shape of a face, or it could be a sign stapled to a little wooden stick.
Yep. And I just think that I like, I've walked into the band boosters when I wasn't, an officer, and was able to sit down in a board meeting and pull out, half a dozen really cool items and start talking about them. And everybody's passing them around and touching them and thinking about them. And it's like, be creative. I can't stress that enough. And that's why I do my sample set. Now, I will say that in most cases, if I'm going to go after a specific marketplace, I try to create a sample set I can show multiple places, but always take at least one item that I think is really popular for that particular client, so that they have one that I've decorated with an idea for them. Maybe it's just as simple as a coffee mug. It really depends on who the client is, right?
And
but I do,
personalized.
yeah,
Personalized.
and personalized. But I do like to have my standard sample set that you can put down in front of people, even if it's not their logo, and they say, wow, that's pretty cool. You're looking at how things kind of work together, something like this.
Yeah, another technique, Jimmy, that I've seen our clients use successfully is I'll call it the referral method, where they bring a sample that they've done for another company or another school that school may have a little rivalry with,
Right.
and they go, well, gosh, if they've got those, we need those.
Right.
And that kind of stuff really works well.
Yeah. The final thing is having a good sales pitch. And I know, I talked to a lot of people at the Sublimation Summit that you and I were at about 2 weeks ago. And in fact, Dave, you probably remember when we were doing our panel discussion that was a couple of people who said they felt uncomfortable trying to go out and make a sale. They didn't have confidence and whatnot. And that's why it's important to figure out your sales pitch in advance and just kind of rehearse it. I mean, don't get too much like it's a speech, but just talk about the different things. Maybe talk with, a family member or a friend or something. The idea is just to get the ideas in your head that you want to talk about and rehearse it. I mean, eventually it just gets in your head and you're okay. But that very first time you could be a little nervous. So, think about what your samples are and how you're going to talk about the samples and, how those things work together and put it out there in front of people and really, really just get them excited. Because I'm telling you, if you've got a good sample, whether it's one piece or half dozen pieces, immediately your client looks at it and you can tell in their face that they're excited about it if you did a good job. And as soon as they're excited about it, it's like you broke all the ice anyway. I mean, now you're kind of proud of what you did and you feel proud and you start talking about it. So, but if you're uncomfortable with the sales pitch, think it through and practice a little bit and just get comfortable.
I can't say that enough. And, bottom line is you need to have a great sample to show. You need to make sure it's a good sample, and one of the ways to make sure it's a good sample is to find somebody that that is familiar with the team or organization or whatever, and show it to them and verify that you're, for instance, using their current logo. People change things, so you don't want to go into a situation and get embarrassed over over not having something that's
Oops.
appropriate. And that's sort of easy actually, and that's your entree into it. And you can of course ask, may I use your name, to get into the organization, and very often that'll be a great calling card for you. But it's really not that hard. And that's really going to be the key to success, is to make those calls. And once you're selling to an organization, even if it's something as simple as, may I, for your next fundraiser, maybe you have a silent auction, as we've talked about so many times, being part of that silent auction to pitch one of your products in there. You'd be amazed. For instance, Jimmy, did you get auctioned off at the
I did.
Sublimation Summit?
I got auctioned off. You brought in more money than I did, David.
Well, I wasn't the top revenue maker in this one.
Yeah, but that particular top revenue maker, I think, kind of cheated because he kind of helped by himself. But we'll leave it at that.
I wasn't there for that. But the lady who bought me, we talked to her, and her main issue was she was very confident with sublimation, but she didn't have the confidence to make those sales calls. And we just went through the list of the people around her, the organizations, schools, bed and breakfast, pets, cheerleaders, you name it. And you just got to get out there and make samples and get feedback from the person, the organization. And I'll tell you what, you can pick up a tremendous amount of momentum. This time of year, you need to be contacting all these organizations, finding out, can you work your way into a Christmas ornament, for instance, for this time of year, you name it. And I would say that it's never too late, because you never know what's happening financially with that organization. It could be they're going to go to the playoffs, and they found out about going to the playoffs last night, and now they desperately want to put a front license plate on there as a caravan, a car flag. And so if you're the person that's been calling on them to show them that you can make these products quickly, on demand, and personalized, then you're going to get that business. So really, it's you can't wait for somebody to call you. The secret to success is get out there and introduce yourself, show people what you can do. Don't be too broad with people, provide them a sample, a personalized sample, and just say, I can make a lot of products with it. There's probably no need to give them a catalog or anything like that. You do want to leave them some sort of business card so they'll have a great way to get in touch with you. But really effective. I like to lead, as Jimmy knows, I like to lead with a name badge. I think name badges are the best product of all time, because you only have to sell it once. Most organizations love name badges, and get out there and sell it.
Absolutely. Okay, so I want to tell everybody a little different twist that I used. In this case, it maybe is not their traditional sport, but I've done so much with fishing, okay, and the fishing tournaments. And one of the things that we did was we actually went and pitched headwear as a product that they could sell, that we could produce for them. And they flat out rejected it and said no one would buy. And that was because the year before they had ordered, and this is a big tournament, okay? Their big money maker is screen printed T-shirts. They sell about 13,000 shirts every year. And they said, well, the hats didn't work out, so we're not interested in hats. And what they showed me was a red foam front mesh back cap with white screen printing with the name of the tournament and the tournament logo. Now, the tournament logo is a very pretty logo, but it was all done in white, and it just looked hideous. And I'm thinking, because I know these people, they're in these tournaments, and this is not the kind of headwear they wear, right? So they rejected us totally on our sales pitch, and I showed them the really nice products, So we went back. I didn't give up. We went back and we said, listen, tell you what, why don't we do this a different way? We'll do everything. We'll produce it at our cost. You let us come to where the spectator area is and sell, and we'll give you a percentage of the sales. Well, they were very skeptical about that, and it took really a couple of meetings, and they finally agreed to it. And so we went in the tournaments. Thursday is what they call the captain's meeting, where everybody kind of shows up, and then Friday and Saturday they're fishing, and then the awards is Sunday. Thursday night, with the captain's meeting and people coming down to kind of see what's going on, we sold 500 hats and we're done, because that's how many we made. And at that time, I told them I'd give them $2 for every hat, and they accepted. And so I gave them a check for $1,000 and left.
Wow.
They were amazed, right? So the next year, they invited us back, but this time they wanted to renegotiate the percentage to a higher percentage. And I was okay with that, okay? But I took it one step further. I said, fine, but can we bring our mobile production unit where we can make products on the spot for the fishing teams? And they agreed, but said we need to be a sponsor. And I got nervous. Now I'm like, oh gosh, that's going to be thousands of dollars. As it turned out, the lowest level sponsorship was like $350 or something. I mean, it was the upper level guys that were paying, thousands. And so for a very minor amount of money, I have a mobile trailer with air conditioning and everything. And we make stuff on the spot. Plus we sold the tournament stuff. And it worked out so well that we took it to other tournaments and began doing this, with other events. So it was a totally different way of where we just paid them money. It cost them nothing. A friend of mine does this with the schools. She actually goes to the schools and says, I want to go sell my products during your football games, basketball games, whatever, and I'm going to give you a percentage of everything I sell there for you have no risk. Now, that means she has a risk. This meant I had a risk, but I knew what I was doing. I didn't see this as a risk. And so it's a different way to go, is to approach them where they don't have any upfront money, but they're going to get something on the back end. And you're actually going to probably make a higher profit when you do it this way, of just giving them a percentage. But just a different way to go, So basically wrapping up, what we've been talking about is that, schools are only one small part. We talk a lot about schools. Fundraising itself can apply to so many different organizations. So again, a lot of organizations turn to sports events or whatnot, which Fanwear fits in perfectly, for that. So we can apply everything we've talked about a lot of different ways, not just to, schools and that type of thing. My final points to you: focus on perceived value. Use your sales and marketing efforts to raise the perception of worth, what the worth to them, the customer. Realize that what goes on the substrate usually does more for the value than the substrate itself. And really focus on the right item for the application. Okay? I mean, do it right, make the graphics pop and everything else. So.
Yeah, I had one last story. Over the years, Jimmy and I both have talked to a lot of different audiences. One of them has been the awards and engravings audience, and that's traditionally where many sports teams go to get their trophies and things like that. And I tell about the true decision maker. Do you know who the true decision maker with, say, a little league baseball team is, Jimmy?
I'm not sure.
Okay, the true decision maker is the team mom. So she's out there runs for the coaches, making those decisions, and the coach is, of course, very thankful to have a person. So imagine you go in and you identify who the team mom is, because again, she's going to help you get into all the opportunities with that team. And guess what? Let's say as your thank you for that team mom, you make her a team purse. So we've got some great little purse kind of things here at Condé. You put the team photograph on that bag, and guess what? She's going to show it to everybody, and everybody is going to be knocking on your door wanting things. Think of making, for instance, a cuff bracelet for the other team moms, the other moms that have kids on the team, and putting their son or daughter on their team logo, the year, of course, because you want to date everything because you want to make sure they get one for next year.
Yep.
So working your way into all these organizations where people absolutely will spend the money. They want things to show, the neighbors, the grandmother, grandfather, you name it, and they're very often in these sports willing to spend the money, and maybe for being part of these organizations, you provide them a little bit of, as Jimmy said, a little bit of kickback, so that it gets people even more excited that they're going to have some money for that end of the year party.
Yep. Well, David, we got a couple of questions here I want to kind of jump over to real quick.
Sure.
Let's see. I'm wondering if you're able to address using team photos. Are those something that the photographer have rights to, or do the parents, school, students
Okay,
likely
so
own the rights?
again, the general part of it, if it was taken by a professional photographer, you must get permission to use that photograph. So when my kids were young, on the day team photographs were taken, I would walk up, introduce myself to the team photographer, and ask for permission. If he said yes, I would follow up with an email so I had it in writing from him that I did have permission. Otherwise, you just ask the coach to line them up. You take the photograph yourself, or you get a photograph that somebody else has taken, so that it's very clear, that you can use the photograph.
Yep. Okay. And this is always a good one too. How do you get over the issue that a lot of these teams, events, et cetera, can get promotional items so much cheaper through the big online promotion stores?
I would say it's a matter of on-demand, quick delivery, and personalization. Usually with promotional products, which of course has its place, you're going to have to order probably more than you need, especially for a typical team, and you're going to have to wait, and there's no photograph involved in most of these promotional products. So you have so many ways to add value well above any promotional product.
Yeah, and that it just goes back to one of those things where I've always it's like don't have a fear of the competition, have a knowledge of the competition. So if you see them as competition, you don't want to go out and try to match the price. You try to go figure out what you can do better, and then you focus on what you can do better. And so many times it's turnaround, it's that personal service, one-on-one. I mean, it's one thing for somebody to send you a picture. This is what it's going to look like. It's another thing if you actually create the first sample and go walk in and say, this is what it's going to look like. They understand. And I've always used the ability, as Dave was mentioning too, of running small quantities on demand. Okay, it's like, oh, we got a football game coming up, but we don't want to buy 100 Spirit flags. We're just not sure. I said, well, fine, we'll sell you 12, if you want for your first game. See how it works out, and the next time you can order more and whatever else. So I'm always trying to work with these people because a lot of them are your neighbors if you get down to it. And can we work with them and show them what the advantage is of buying from you, even if it costs more? And of course, uniqueness. I mean, I just can't say enough for that. And if you're not sure about uniqueness, just go to Condé.com and start searching all the substrates there. You can do a lot of cool things. And as David said, just things that they can't always do,
So
especially with the
let's
photos.
I want to say one more thing about promotional products. So if promotional products appears to be a real threat to your business, and I think usually you can certainly work around it, then join ASI. That's one of the big promotional products programs, and you can sell them the promotional products when it's appropriate. And so we have a relationship with ASI. You can contact your Condé rep to get some information about ASI, and then you can offer these products on demand. But I would say that with many of these, the ability to order exactly what you need, to have no overages, to be able to get more, the personalization, the photographic quality, the great diversity of products, I think you've got certainly a winning formula there.
Yep. Two more questions here real quick. I thought you can't print white color with Sawgrass. How did they do that on the golf towel? So Dave, you remember the golf towel where I thought the golf ball was real, so it had a white golf ball there, and it was a green towel. Basically
So
what it was is,
the towel was not green.
right,
It was sublimated green, of course. So the towel started white, and then through the magic of sublimation, you dyed the towel whatever color you want. The parts that are not dyed are still white.
right. So that's how that was done. Someone's asking me directly, what does your mobile production unit consist of? Once I started doing a lot of mobile events, I mean, the very first one I went to, I had like a U-Haul trailer, and it was kind of a disaster. But anyway, you were learning from scratch. But then I bought an 18-foot trailer, 2 axles, mounted an air conditioning on the roof, put in a breaker box, electrical outlets, a pull-out awning on the side, things that you can go to, like, I think it's Camping World, and buy all these things. But my whole point was, with the awning that pulled out, we did the selling outside, so you're in front of people. So a nice big awning that pulled out, and my wife would work under it. We'd had a piece of indoor-outdoor carpet that, to lay on the ground since we're outside, tables with table skirts, displays, and everything else. And she's doing that, and then I'm inside, where it's cool because someone has to be in there, maintaining the equipment and whatnot, right? And actually producing the stuff there. So we took the equipment that was necessary to produce the products we wanted to produce at any given event.
Yeah, that's one of those kinds of things where I think there's a bunch of steps before you get to that point. It could be just attending some mobile events with a small printer, small heat press. You could set up using our Condé kiosk to get photos from people. And ultimately, you graduate from there. Obviously, you need a facility, because you don't want to be lugging around equipment. You need enough for power. So, you got a bunch of challenges, and you really need to work very closely with the event organizer so that you're not getting yourself into a situation where there's somebody competing with you, for instance.
Yep. Okay, Dave. Well, we are at the top of the hour here, and I know that I think you wanted to, actually we went past it.
So I want to give away
yes.
a $50 Condé credit. And so if you will select a random winner and just provide me the name.
Give me just a second, and I will do that. To open up and so I can see all the names. And okay, so just so everybody knows that this is not staged in any way. I just I can display in front of me the names of everybody that's here, and basically what I do is I close my eyes and I just put my finger on the screen, and hopefully it lands on somebody's name, right? So here we go. I'm getting ready to do this, and all right. I missed the screen. Here, let me do it one more time. Well, I didn't miss the screen. I missed the names. Okay. I have here Patricia Graham. Patricia Graham, you are the lucky winner today.
Is that spelled Graham,
like graham cracker?
A-M. Well, Patricia, congratulations. You're the winner of Condé credit for $50. And then, Jimmy, for everybody that's on the webinar and everybody who watches it on Condé TV, I want to make this offer, and you can make it for yourself, but we want to go back to those stadium cushions, which, of course, make my life so easy and my wife's as well. So I want to give away, I think it's the rectangular version. It's the SC2533. SC2533 stadium cushion with your next order of $100 or more. and all you need to do is let your Condé rep know that you want it. You can, if you're doing it online, put it in the shipping notes. There's a notes for shipping, and just say, webinar SC2533, and we'll get it on your, get it out to you in your next order of $100 or more. So Jimmy, again, thank you for putting together this webinar. We hope this has been beneficial, and we look forward to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody has additional questions, contact Condé. I mean, they're more than willing to work with you on everything. So I know sometimes more questions come up right after we
Yeah,
sign
we
off.
have certainly a passion for this, and our only goal here is to make you successful.
Absolutely.
Jimmy, thank you again.
Thanks, David, and we'll see
Take
everybody
care.
next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.